Let's start out with Food for the Soul's mother and son team, Julie and Henry. Dynamic duo, co-founders, hikers, foodies, and family. Let's welcome them to the stage as they cook their way to the top.
There we go.
Off to a good start.
I'll just stay over here.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna put that one down. Maybe we put this in the middle. All right. Yeah. All right. Cool.
We're close. We're okay.
Wait.
No, just
Testing. Oh. It was on the whole time. Hey, folks. We are Julie and Henry, mother and son, co-founders of Food for the Soul, and two people who somehow spend an incredible amount of time together without driving each other completely crazy. Most of the time. Our roots come from a strong history of spending both quality time in the outdoors and in the kitchen. Having both grown up in a foodie family, the experience at the dining table was often far from the ordinary. Culinary exploration was always at the heart of our meals, and so when Julie took her first backpacking trip in over 30 years, there was only one part of that experience that was found wanting.
So I went out to Moraine Lake at the base of South Sister, and I was so excited for this trip that I bought whatever food was on the shelf at the outdoor store. And I got to the lake, and I set up camp, and I've got this beautiful, beautiful mountain view, and I took my first bite of food, and I thought, wow, I can do better. So I went home and started working on backpacking meals. And about 3 months in, Henry came to me with a request. He and a buddy were going to do the John Muir Trail, about 220 miles in the high Sierras, and they were doing 3 weeks on and off the trail with the landscape photography tour. And because of the weight and the space taken up by their cameras, they weren't taking a stove.
Yeah, everything we were going to eat was going to be cold soak. So we were so focused on the landscape photography aspect and enabling longer mile days that the flavor it didn't really matter as much to us. The plan was pour cold water in the food, toss the food back in the backpack, hike the next few miles, and once the food was ready, we would eat the food. And the reality is this is actually a very common practice for long-distance hikers these days.
Well, the flavor may not have been important to the boys, but it was really important to me. So that said, I had 3 weeks' notice and set out to create an entire menu for them, breakfast to dinner with snacks for 2 guys that are each going to need 4,000 calories a day. And I got to tell you, with just a few months into this, that no stove thing kind of threw me for a loop.
That said, my mom, being the brilliant chef that she is, came up with these incredible flavor combinations that honestly left Mark and myself drooling in anticipation of our next meals. There were meals like the triple peanut slaw. They just, I have these fond memories of sitting down by the river, feet soaked in the river, after a long morning hike in the summer, and rehydrating the meal to have this beautiful combination of peanuts and cabbage and red peppers with the hint of sweetness. And there was something to be said for the convenience and minimal effort it required to enjoy a nutritious meal.
So when Henry got back, he started telling his friends. And 4 years down the road of recipe development and making meals for his friends and mine, the push to start this business was just too strong to ignore. So while researching the backpacking food industry, we discovered a few things. There was a distinct lack of meals that had texture, that had unique flavor profiles or tasted fresh. Also, the backpacking food industry is dominated by meat-based products, so vegetarians and vegans were largely left to their own devices. Gluten-free folks as well pretty much had to figure out their own backcountry nutrition, and we really realized there was a hole in the market.
Yeah. We believe we could fill that hole. Cooking vegan's not that hard, as though it might seem. You use healthy oils instead of butters, nuts and legumes and seeds instead of meats, and outside of that, it's just a focus on using a lot of vegetables. Whether you're vegan or not, at some point on the trail, you kind of just want to eat something fresh. So not only is our food nutrient dense and packed full of veggies, but we're creating complex flavor profiles where the food meets in the pan, not in the bag. And because of this, our food has texture. We use the same ingredients you would cook with at home. And we could take the quick and easy route. We could order bulk quantities of freeze-dried ingredients, toss the measured amounts into the bag, add some flavor powders, and call it a meal. But to us, that's not how food is made. It doesn't taste right that way.
No. And it turns out that we're not the only people who feel like that. We started demoing our food last year at events, and we would watch people's faces kind of light up with excitement and surprise when they tasted our food. And we often demo the triple peanut slaw that Henry has mentioned. And that is the prepared, then dehydrated, then rehydrated meal that they're tasting. And we had comments all the time saying, I could eat this in a restaurant. And in fact, Brian, he's taken our food on trips and said it's the best backcountry food he's ever had. Thank you, Brian. So we currently have in our lineup, we have 5 hot entrees, and we have 2 of the famed cold soak salads that were inspired by Henry's trip, the triple peanut slaw that we've mentioned a few times, and the zesty broccoli miso slaw. And we're also introducing a line of oatmeals this spring.
Yeah. So the consistent theme that we introduce with every meal we create is a heavy emphasis on caloric density to weight ratio and a strong presence of protein. So even with our new dessert, it has 10 grams of protein in our cinnamon cherry crisp. If you're the morning sweet tooth kind of person, our crisp is right up your alley for breakfast. The cherries rehydrate to create this beautiful, plump, juicy pop of flavor in your mouth, and the crisp topping gets sprinkled right over for a delightful crunch. Our meals have been very well received by backpackers, who are our primary vertical. Backpackers take an average of 6 trips a year and frequently cross over between outdoor activities. So by capturing the interest of backpackers, it helps us gain entry into other markets. Admittedly, backpacking is a seasonal activity, but we can extend our season by looking at other markets in the outdoors where weight and space is a concern. Take kayaking, for example. One of our employees is a whitewater boater, and in his words, having our cold soak salads on the river is a game changer for big days. All Grant has to do is pull off into an eddy, pour 2 ounces of cold water into the meal, and in 10 minutes he's got a fully nutritious meal ready to go. And other markets we're looking at include van dwellers, emergency preppers, long-haul truckers.
So while Food for the Soul bridges 2 industries, we're food manufacturers, and in the outdoor industry, it's really outdoor recreation where our focus lies. And I'm sure it comes as no surprise to anybody in Bend, but that industry is growing, and there's an estimated $887 billion in annual spending. And of that, $56 billion is spent on gear and accessories for camping and trail sports. And the statistic that I love, 145 million Americans participate in the outdoors, which is more than attend NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL games combined. So that's pretty cool. As far as our competition goes, the big name in the market is Mountain House. I'm sure you all heard of them. They've been the ubiquitous brand for decades. Alpine Air and Backpackers Pantry are also well-established manufacturers. Good to Go is another dehydrated company, started in Maine 5 years ago. They have a national reach. And we're aware of a couple of other startups in the region with us. But there's plenty of room. There's plenty of room for what we do. So we have 2 main revenue streams: business to consumer via online sales, and business to business with accounts in 5 or 6 states. That's Henry's area. And we also do the occasional outdoor-oriented event, like PCT Days in the Gorge, which is an event for thru hikers. Our margins at the moment, retail margins average 62% and wholesale is 40%, and we know that we can improve those margins as we scale. Our full-size meals are $11 a package, and those are really full-size meals. They're 510 to 670 calories with 15 to 20 grams of protein. You will feel full when you're done. And locally, you can find our food at Gear Fix, Mountain Supply, and Hike and Peak and Sisters.
So as noted before, all the Food for Souls meals are vegan, and most are gluten-free. While many brands will offer vegetarian, some vegan options, we are the only company that we're aware of that is doing a full vegan lineup, and we are also setting the trend on doing cold soak salads. So in these two ways, we are unique. We offer interesting flavor profiles, and we're proud of the way our food looks. So as you can see on your tables or chairs, we have windows on our food packaging. You can see that we're using real ingredients.
All of our meals are packaged and made and packaged at Prep, which is a commissary kitchen here in town. They actually started a year and a half ago, so they're also a startup. Mm-hmm. We have 4 part-time employees, both in the kitchen, at events, and doing order fulfillment. And while the facility that we're at has been an amazing place for a startup, and I highly recommend visiting them, space is limited. Storage space in particular is limited. So we need more room in order to be able to order ingredients to take advantage of economy of scale. Excuse me.
Yeah. So we here at these Pub Talks, you guys like to know what people are kind of looking for in terms of growth. We spent the last several months getting our feet underneath us, and now it's time to bring our product to the national market. So we're looking at developing our reach on both coasts. You know, you have the PCT and the Appalachian Trail, a lot of strong hiker presence over there, and we are looking for help in building a responsible scaling strategy. And would love to be connected with people to help us out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job. So we have a few minutes for Q&A. Do you have questions? Yes.
How many meals did you serve last year?
How many meals did you serve last year?
Did we sell last year?
Sell.
About 3,800.
3,800.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm repeating the questions so that people can hear it in the other room, and also just to condense. So, yes, Mike.
Shelf life?
Shelf life.
Dehydrated food is shelf stable for 8 to 10 years. That said, right now we're putting a best use by date of 1.5 years because frankly the idea of keeping food for 10 years kind of disgusts me. We want you to have an amazing experience when you go out to the backcountry and taste our food. So that's where we're at.
Preferably our food gets eaten soon.
Do you have a chocolate cake?
Ooh.
Not yet. We have a cinnamon cherry crisp and I've always got more ideas.
Okay.
Dessert, yes. Backpacking food always has high levels of sodium. What are your sodium levels?
Yeah, so backpacking food frequently has high levels of sodium because of things like hyponatremia, which is pretty common in outdoor athletics where there's a salt imbalance in the kidneys and can lead to issues such as fainting, coma, worse. That's a pretty common problem in backpacking food, and we are cognizant of that and listening to the market and definitely working on maintaining reasonable levels of sodium to appeal to the broad audience.
So we have a range. That's, yeah.
Hang on just a second. You had one question, right? Okay, I'm going to just go over here and then I'll come back. Yes? As you expand, do you think you'll stay vegan?
Right now, that's my plan. There's a lot of room in that market, and frankly, and I think that neither Henry or I are vegan, but as Henry said, after a few days on the trail, the taste of fresh vegetables is pretty remarkable. So I don't have plans beyond that at the moment. There's also some issues with you have to have a USDA approved facility, which is incredibly expensive, and I'm not willing to let somebody else process meat for me because it would degrade the flavor profiles.
Yes, go ahead. Okay, somebody else? Yeah. Why do you choose to manufacture it on your own versus a co-packer?
Excellent question. We have 8 different products in our lineup, and they're made like you would make them at home. So a cinnamon cherry crisp is baked, and we have a stir fry. Finding a co-packer that could do all of that probably isn't going to happen. And so then I would end up with multiple co-packers, which is a whole nother job.
We get to control our quality. We get to ensure that our food tastes the way we want it to.
So is there a question we haven't asked you that you'd like to tell us about?
I don't think so.
We good? Okay. Hey, okay, so there's one in the back. Yes, go ahead. Cruisers on boats. Yeah, there are no fresh vegetables, only wheat thins and smoked oysters. I know from experience. Thank you very much. That's a great comment, actually. So boaters, yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Great job.
Thank you.